Good day, everybody. Super excited to have you all here with us today. Got a new face on here with me today. Uh, Chief Schranz, you want to come on screen?
How you doing, Robbie?
Doing real good. Not a new face, but we're doing the official introductions. That one of the nice things about Matt and I, we're also IFC members. We're VCOS members, and I think that's the exciting part about what Vector Solutions does is not just giving us another career, but being able to continue to support the active fire service. So today we're going to be talking a little bit about simplifying fire training for volunteers and how the right technology can improve consistency, compliance, and effectiveness. As we run through these slides, before we begin, audio is being broadcast using voice over internet protocol technology through your computer speakers or headsets. Please make sure your speakers or headsets are turned on and the volume is turned up. Audience members, microphones may have been muted. If you have any difficulties, please reach out to us via the chat and we'll help you out there. As we move forward, Matt, we are going to be recording all of this. You're going to get a survey at the end of today's recording session by email. That survey is important. Matt and I both love getting to hear your feedback, and we want to hear what you're saying about us. So please tell us about your experience today. But Matt, as we continue to evolve into today's conversation with you, you are you are a senior solutions engineer with us, but you're an active member of the fire service. You were Beagle Fire Chief. You're the current deputy fire chief of an organization. Um, there in Illinois, I come from Georgia. And to me, I value that an awful lot because today's topic, we're talking about a volunteer department or a combination department. We both have long careers supporting both of those areas. I appreciate you coming in and allowing all of us really to learn from you. That's the my big takeaway for all of us here. But anything you want to share before we get started?
No, Robbie, I'm glad to be able to sit and talk about this topic because when we look at the fire service, specifically across the United States, its foundation and roots are based on the volunteer fire service. And as times change and those numbers fluctuate up and down and left to right a little bit, uh, you know, it's still the core foundation. And how do we still provide training? How do we still provide an opportunity to those people that maybe don't have the same opportunity that a career department has? And so that's why I love talking about this topic and using the experiences throughout my career. And I wouldn't say I always did it right. There's a trial and error a lot of times, but it's about sharing that message out there and continuing to serve our people, providing an opportunity for our people and making them one step better every day. And that's so I look forward to this conversation today with you.
Very much. I'm with you. What Vector Solutions is about is our part of our mission statement is readiness save lives. We try to make sure our operational readiness suite is best in class. Our training and certification management programs are really dialed in and connected to all facets of what we're doing to make sure because our training is all in one place and we were built by the fire service. I think was something that maybe some folks aren't very familiar with, but NFPA was one of our original supporters and had ownership stake in us. That's the reason why in our courses we're always, even today, even though they're no longer part of the ownership team, our focus is based off of those standards, the same thing that we all have to go and be based off of. Our focus is on the three large areas of train, prepared, and retain. When we look at the training side of things, to me, Matt, it talks about the policy management. That's great. Being able to have a policy, get the acknowledgments, have a quiz go along with those pieces, but taking that large training catalog, whether it is for fire, EMS, OSHA, HR mandates, all of those areas, like, allowing you to get ahead in the training plan. So we do have easy recertification processes, ISO, but track all of the training in person, online, doesn't matter, take care of it. And then with Evaluations Plus, being able to take care of those mobile enabled skills as well. On the prepared side of things, we have two great products. Uh, Scheduling and Check It. When I think of scheduling, it's our time and attendance tool. Check It, to me, Matt, I think this one is even more important for today's viewership that are watching, being able to establish patterns for those truck checks. Are you doing them daily? My first volunteer department, we did those things. The second one, well, it was a weekly type of area. You can put those reoccurring items on there and we can know with confidence that it was taken care of. And then the last one is Guardian tracking under the retain side of things, being able to track not just the exposures, or not just having a digital personnel file, really being able to track those milestone events that we go to and making sure that when we get home, we're in a good position to be able to process what we were exposed to in there. But I really want to get to what we're talking about today, and we have some good topics to talk about. I think today I'd love to be able to do it a little differently. Sometimes we show a lot of graphics and all the rest of those types of things, but I think we can get some great information just by talking. And I'm not sure why my camera is zooming in and out sometimes. So please make fun of me for that, Matt, and I'll make sure I sit really still so it doesn't move around on us. But before we get too deep into things of talking about the four topics, talking about leveraging that technology to create training opportunities, maintaining consistency in training and compliance, evaluate training effectiveness, and simplify training management with Target Solutions Volunteer Edition. At any time today, if you have a question, love to hear from your questions. We'd love to see what you have to say. So drop those questions in there and we'll get that one taken care of as well. But I thought we'd get some engagement going. I just launched a poll, Matt. I named this one here. What is the single biggest barrier to keeping training compliance in your department right now? And we got a bunch of people jumping in on this. I love seeing the folks putting information in here. Most of them are saying member availability is their hardest piece on there. What's your take on that one, Matt?
Oh, I'm not surprised by that. We live in busy lives, and I think as we look in and break down all the demands of the fire service, I think back when I began, it was the fire service, and now we're an all hazards organization. And when we start to look at some of the challenges and break down some of the roots of what is required, and then you tie that to member availability, it becomes extremely challenging, without a doubt. And I think as we break this down, you have to approach this in an open mindset. Oftentimes in these organizations, whether it's a completely volunteer department, whether it's a combination department, when we're having our training nights or our training events, and whether they're in person, they're department meetings, whatever that involves, we're asking people to come for little or no compensation. And when all of those requirements that are put in our hands, we have to approach this in a perspective where, as technology evolves, we can give other avenues to accomplish that same goal. And but you have to be willing to look at this open-minded, with a caveat there, Robbie. You have to be able to provide and use technology to align with people's availability, but we also have to hold them to a standard. So it's easy. I think when we look at the responses in that poll, you know, overarchingly, the member availability far, exceeds the others. But we also have to provide the training, but we have to make sure that we're still providing a level of service that is meeting the department, the community standards. Remember, when the bell rings, we go out the door. They don't care if you're paid or you're volunteer, or your combination. They are calling us at their worst moment, and they expect a level of service. They don't care if you had 1,000 hours or 5 hours of training. What they care about is you know how to do your job and that you're proficient at that job. And they don't care about all the rest. It's all extra noise in the background at that point in time. And so, how do we break that down with technology to accommodate the member availability so that we can still provide a level of service? We can still provide a standard. And, traditionally in the fire service, everything was you have to sit in a classroom. We're going to put a PowerPoint up. We're going to play a video. We're going to have a discussion, all valuable pieces. And I don't want to discredit and take away from that perspective because there is a value. I think if we were to ask the folks joining us today, there is a huge, tremendous value to face-to-face learning. But we know that in today's society, that just isn't always conducive with time constraints. And so now thinking outside the box, I look at it from the perspective, how many times do you walk in the fire station, whether it's a training night or it's just an afternoon to stop in and see what's going on? And how many people have their phone in their hand? They're watching a YouTube video. They're looking up a website. They're scrolling social media. And if we can take time out of our day, whether we're in the fire station, we're at home, we're at work, and you can take time out of your day to pick that device up and look at sociable events and sociable items on your device, why can't we take a few short minutes to be able to look at some training material, to take some time to take a course? Think about the compliance side of the house. How do we make sure with the member availability mindset that we meet the minimum benchmarks? If we have EMS providers in our organization or first responders, do we provide bloodborne pathogen training? Well, that's a compliance issue because if we're not, and somebody now gets a needle stick or something else worse happens, where were they trained? Well, before you had to sit in a classroom to do that mind-numbing training, to be honest. And now, how about the power of being able to pick up that cell phone, being able to take that course at your convenience, stop it, and come back, revisit it whenever you need to. And the power of that interactive session when you are face-to-face with people, you don't have to, with technology today, say, you know what, I'm just checking a box. Yeah. Rather, you have the ability to deliver that training online and make the in-person opportunities more impactful, more engaging, more around situational awareness and sharing core valued information, rather than, you know what, hey, Robbie, I need you to come in the firehouse tonight. We got to sit down at the computer and we're going to sit in the training room and we're going to watch this bloodborne pathogen video that may be 15 years old. How about having relevant information? One of the second questions there on the poll that came up was course relevance, and much lower than the member availability, but I think it's still true to its core. Wow. You want to have that relevant information. And if we're not refreshing that content, and if we're not looking, at the administrative burden there, that's even much smaller. What that tells me is these all start to line up with each other, because in order to have relevant information and relevant content, if you're going to create that content yourself, creates that administrative burden, which talks directly to the availability not only of your members but of your administrators as well. If you're a volunteer fire chief or training officer and you've got 1,000 other tasks that you have to do to run an organization, Do you always have the time to build that content and that material so that it is relevant? No, oftentimes what happens is we go pull old stuff. You know what? I've used this for the last couple of years. It's still good. Let's have relevant, impactful information we can share with people. Because if we're sharing relevance, we're keeping them engaged. Not click, click, click. We're looking at the same video or the same PowerPoint that we've watched for a number of years now, but keep things interesting and engaging and impactful to our audience. I think it goes a long way.
It does. It does. You brought up several great points, and I think that member availability kind of relate as you were talking about that aspect is really important. Whether it is whatever your items were. I know for me it was my beliefs. It was my wife, my kids, my work. And then that last one was my volunteer department. Those other four always had to take place. Now we put some parameters, and maybe I'm going to skip something to go do training night or do those types of things. The call drops, we make those concessions. But when we talk about the training side of things, we have to be able to make these things very specific and allow us to grow as well, to be able to experience that side of things. And that's the reason why I like the online training side of things. Being able to assign some work, whether it's read this, watch this, those types of gain that knowledge. For us, we did training on Thursday nights. Because a sister department did it on Tuesday nights, just trying to spread that love around. So we gave them from Friday to Wednesday night to get that training done. And then they could do it when it was convenient for them. They weren't being forced to run to the station and do this or do that. We're just making it very simple for them to do it when it fits into their schedule. My wife was a nurse. Well, she still is technically a nurse and a school teacher throughout the years, so she was always getting up early for shift and those types of things. So she went to bed early. Well, I back then only ran on, a handful of hours of sleep a night. So I was able to take care of other additional work while we were laying in bed and she was sitting me watching TV. I was just working and doing those types of things. I had people who got an hour for lunch and they were knocking out policy reviews or taking a course, all those things. So when we got to training, they were already prepared. We weren't doing death by PowerPoint or like you. I love that point because I tell you what, I was there. Oh, last time we talked about this subject, this is what we used. And next thing you know, you're pulling out old photos or some crazy piece to those things. So making sure, to me, that part really does a great job of making their availability when it's convenient for them with these online tools, whether it's Target Solutions or reading something else or doing those things. And that course relevancy, like you talked about, is truly important. Want to make sure the resources we're giving them are appropriate. I'm not, you pick a large metropolitan department, they have enough people employed every shift where they can stand shoulder to shoulder and stomp the fire out, where the rest of us are handling multiple jobs and those types of things on the fire scene. We need to make sure that when we're covering that material, it's factual information, but also in a manner that's appropriate to everyone as well. I appreciate our content team for working on those areas as well. Before we move on to the next area, though, Matt, I'd love to be able to hear some tips or tricks to getting a couple people to come in and be there at the station. And I'll give my tip as well. You probably pick a better one than mine, but just a little tidbit to hear from everybody.
Yeah, and Robbie, I think that's a great one. I'll throw one out to get that started, and I would love for our folks joining us to throw it in the chat there in the Q&A.
Yes.
With some of your thoughts as well as we're going through this. But One of my favorite things that I used, and I used it in both an actual paramedic class that I taught, but also in my weekly training. I saw it was working in one side, and I thought, why not adapt it into my weekly training when I was bringing my volunteers in to ask them to give me time. And I mentioned before one of the most impactful things is engagement around the firehouse and having people to embrace each other. And I think back to emergency in Squad 51, and as I started to go down this path, we would have conversations about the old Johnny and Roy and the impact that they made on the fire service today. And I started getting some blank stares. And so I went and I got the video series and I would throw it up in the training room. And what I found, I wouldn't say anything to anybody. I would just throw an episode up. And as people would come in, they would see it playing and it intrigued them and it caught their attention. And then what I found is just letting the folks have a conversation about it and they become engaged in what they were seeing. And so I'd start 30, 45 minutes before training started. And after a few short weeks, what I saw is they're showing up earlier and earlier and earlier. And they were having some conversations about what they were seeing in something from the 1970s and how it related to present day and
Yeah.
how the equipment they used was much different, but it laid the foundation. And so I use that as one brief example of find something, it can be anything, but find something that gets your people talking, gets them engaged. The last thing you want is to have a department full of young personnel that walk in for training and they get there 10, 15 minutes early and they sit in the kitchen around the table or they sit in the bay or in the day room and they're all on their phones and they're all scrolling social media, but they're not talking. There's a power of conversation. And that conversation can and should be around the fire service, engaging and getting our minds going and what we're going to train on. And it might be a story. It might be something you saw in that episode of Emergency. It might be a call you just went on that three other guys or gals that just walked in a firehouse weren't on this week and you want to share your experience. That's the power of conversation. It's the power of having that ability to have a conversation starter in any format and see the it just flourish and grow with each other.
I love that. Please continue to drop those. What are some tips or tricks? We had a handful of people. I know there's more people on here than that. We got a good list today, but we'd love to hear from you all. One of the I shared that one to the group about dinner. We used to do all of our station maintenance and truck maintenance on Saturday mornings. So we would all get there early, knock out all the stuff, emptied everything off the trucks, washed it, cleaned it, and put it back on, and then we did lunch. But there they were talking about doing dinner but beforehand. I just think that meals solve a lot of areas as well. Um,
I'll touch on something that just came in there, Robbie. One of the
yeah,
responses was inclusiveness environment, including all areas of EMS, rescue, fire into the training. And I want to take that one step forward. It's not just including each area and each division of the organization, because I look at this as everybody has a value. Some people can only be a driver in these departments. That's their capacity that they can be in. It doesn't take any value away from that person. Sometimes those are the best people to have on a fire ground. They've pumped fires. They know the ins and outs of that vehicle, and they're the best people. Or likewise for EMS. But when we talk about having an inclusive environment, it's also about not just including them, but also putting them in a spot of a comfortable, uncomfortable state. Think about how I just said that. A comfortable, uncomfortable state. So you get that veteran firefighter, maybe they're only a driver. And for this purpose, let's use that they're They've been driving that engine for the last 25, 30 years, but they can't get down and crawl around in a house anymore. And you got a brand new driver that just started in their driver's training program. Well, they learn much differently than that veteran firefighter did. And putting them together and embracing them so that the new generation can learn from the old generation, but the old generation can one-on-one learn from the alternating generation. I think that goes a long way because it's not, you know what, yeah, you're just that lonely driver over there. You just go park yourself over there and do your job, and we'll handle everything over here. It's about making them feel included, giving them some ownership to have that conversation one on one or small group format to let them know not only they're valued in the organization, but that they have an impact and that they can also learn from thoughts, mindsets, ideologies from the younger generation as well. And I have never seen an experience where you embrace those different generations together in a small group format where they didn't both feel empowered by each other. Because we can all learn from each other, and the veteran fire service personnel, I think they know that. I think they know that they can't always maybe do everything that they used to be able to do, but they can still learn something from the young generation in the right mindset and the right format.
I love that. My suggestion was also grabbing when we were teaching a firefighter one class or the 101, whatever you want to call the course, or basic operations firefighter. Am I correct there, man? Is we met, yeah, at class, all throughout the week, and generally Mondays were free from stuff, but being able to, I would ask a senior firefighter, somebody who is, maybe up for a promotion or wanted to get into training in those areas. And if we were doing ladders this week, I'd just say, hey, you know what, Firefighter Strong's, you do a spectacular job with ladders. I wanted to see if you could come in from 5 to 7, 6 to 8, just for a couple of hours. And it's just going to be our open time for guys and gals that come in. So if they have any questions about ladders, you can take care of those types of things. And for me being able to do that, I tagged a senior person now with an up and coming junior person. And you know as well as I do, you may tell somebody that you're going to be there from 5 to 7. Next thing you know, it's 10 o'clock at night and you've been there for 5 hours. You started on ladders and you've gone into so many other things. But hopefully, also, we've paired that with the ability, or not necessarily the ability, to also share a connection. This way we can find out, hey, hey, I know that face. I can go talk to them and those types of things. But that was really a great way for me to be able to push some stuff out there as well. And you're right. I see the message came in here as well. Being able to spread the wealth, have someone who has specific expertise or knowledge, give some training out there. You're right. It gives that credibility up and down that chain of command. And you find out that you have other people who can help you. When we look at this, is that availability, your availability. If you are a leader in the organization, anytime you can get somebody else involved that works towards that retention side of things. I thought we would continue talking a little bit. I do like being able to have an online component to all of this. But it does, everything we do, we have to make sure we fit it to their schedules. And I hear that part, being able to find the right time for those areas as well, and which night you meet and those types of things, whether it's a business meeting, because your charter says you have to have those as well. But Matt, I thought we could talk a little bit more about maintaining consistency and training and compliance. What are some of your, I got a lot of different ways to go with this one here when we talk about making sure every member, not this member or that member, all the members have completed the required training and meet the standards through, adaptive learning or any type of learning.
Yeah, so as we kind of started down that path in the last section, talking about the number of changes and the amount of stipulations, requirements, compliance, that we're all faced with. If your organization lies in a state that has ISO and you value a mission to try and get the best rating you can, all of that comes together. What are you doing for your EMS certifications to make sure your people are compliant with that? It all comes under the compliancy.
Yeah.
Now some of those have financial burden to them if you don't comply, and others don't. Obviously, when we looked at that poll question, it said budget constraints. We want to try to minimize any fines and extra burden of that unnecessary feat. But I oftentimes look at the compliance aspect as the unpopular lane to be in. That is stuff that people don't really want to be engaged in. And so I think when we look at those in-person sessions to be able to require that completed training, looking at it in an open mindset, how can we embrace some of the other topics in the fire service to foster in an approach, and we can touch on some of those mandatory compliance things and I'm not a fan of checking a box, but check that compliance box to say, you know what, we were doing forcible entry, or we were doing, some type of machinery rescue drill, and we also covered lockout tagout in that. We were doing forcible entry and how to gain access to an electrical panel that was a locked, in a locked fenced area. Well, we covered a major component of using our tools in our toolbox, force and entry, securing the scene. But we also had a brief conversation about lockout and tagout that checked that box for compliance in that perspective. So I look at this as thinking outside the box. When we identified member availability, that spreads across all avenues here. And so if we can tie and connect these dots together on meeting the mark that we need to make for the compliance while we're tracking it, but also make it engaging and impactful for our folks, it's going to go much further. When we talk about being able to ensure that those members are meeting that training requirement, being able to capture the completions and the progress, this all goes back to transparency. If I'm gonna go in at the first of the year and I'm going to assign out training for each month through the entire year, and I never communicate, talk, and be transparent to my folks about what they have to do, where they're at throughout the year, month to month, quarter to quarter, I can't expect to be successful. And so no matter how many folks you have in your department, no matter how often, whether you meet once a month or every week, what matters is that you're transparent and you communicate. You look at every single NIOSH report, volunteer career combination, doesn't matter. Communication, communication, communication. But that communication just isn't on the fire ground. It's in the firehouse. It's in training. It's how we challenge each other. So challenge one another to communicate. And when you assign these assignments out and you say, hey, this month we're doing building construction. Well, you know what, Robbie, I know you got a really busy month. Your kids are in sports. They're doing this, they're doing that. You may not be able to get into the training when we're going to talk about building construction, but that's still important for you to cover that topic. So having the ability to go on and take that course and still get some type of knowledge and education with it, but at your convenience, can go a long way. But we have to still be able to track that. So, if you look down the path of how do we run these reports? What kind of data are we getting out? Are we tracking it through a credential? Are we meeting that standard to say, yes, Robbie was trained in building construction or forcible entry or fire behavior, even though he may have missed those in-person sessions? Did we still get some kind of knowledge out? Because if we're not delivering that opportunity and we're robbing people from still having an opportunity to learn just because they can't be at that in-person session, we're failing everybody. We know that every one of us, we there's time we can give and there's time we can't give, and if we're not stepping up our game and we're not giving people opportunities in a world that we have the ability and the resources and the technology to give those opportunities, we're just failing not just our people, but our people's families. We're failing the communities that we serve because we're robbing them of that opportunity to have that education in multiple avenues and multiple lanes.
That's yeah, very much. When we look to apply that information, we can't miss being able to pull a simple report to validate that yes, that training was done. We always try to focus in each week's training and it built into a larger evolution at the end of the month or somewhere in there based off of the information. But you always try when you hit those milestone events like an OSHA class or those types of things, I always try to recognize the people in the room that admit that. It took me 15 seconds to acknowledge those people, but what's the value there? I get to pick on somebody who didn't do it. That's always fun. But they get that little bit of peer pressure like, hey, Matt, they didn't call your name. There's a difference in there, and people do conform and adapt and those types of things. But I want to make sure we don't miss out on, yeah, we have to do all this stuff. You publish the information, you share the information, but give people the acknowledgement that they did do well. They've met those requirements, and you appreciate that side of things. That little value add will help out in the retention side as well.
I was Robbie, when you said that, something came to my mind is when you hold people accountable. It's easy if you call me up and say, "Hey, Matt, I know you've had a busy month, or a couple months, but you're missing these trainings, or you didn't get in enough." It's easy for us to have that conversation, and I say, "Hey, you know what, Robbie? I appreciate it. I'm really sorry. I'll try harder next time." And it goes back to people's character, right? And it goes back to, are they truly intending on the message they're giving back to you? Are they meaning what they're saying to you, that they are going to try harder? Or are they just, sadly, in most cases, trying to get you off their back right away? And what I found was using the wall of shame, being transparent.
Amen.
I'd put that information up and I'd call it the wall of shame. And guess what? When you call people out and you're transparent, you're not picking on them, but you're saying this is where we're at as an organization. These are the people that have done their end of the bargain, and these are the people that haven't. And guess what? Those people that haven't, when they realize that everybody sees that, they want to quickly get off that wall of shame, and they try harder. I recently had a situation where I had an individual had quite an excessive amount of assignments that were overdue. And we only, in my organization today, we only assign out the monthly OSHA mandatory trainings. And then we give them the opportunity to make up the missed stuff through self-assigned opportunities in their Target Solutions platform. And this person had really taken advantage of some time, and I put them up on the wall of shame, and within 24 hours they had 50% of their trainings done that were on the wall of shame, and within a week they were 100% compliant. Why? Put it out there. We're transparent as an organization. We're not picking on Robbie, we're not picking on Matt. We're saying what we are as an organization and who we are and what our expectations are. And when somebody or a group of people doesn't meet that, what can we do to help empower them? And what I found with that wasn't just that one person taking the opportunity, but as they got around their buddies, they all started having conversations about some of those trainings that they had to complete. And what I found was Robbie and Matt sitting down at the computer doing that training together, having a conversation about that, and sharing that information and being engaging as a crew, not just, oh, Robbie, you got your name put up on the board again, go sit in the room and do your trainings. It was empowering one another. But people don't want to be called out. And so it goes back to that learning to be comfortable in the uncomfortable state of calling them out, telling the story and where we're at, because all you're doing is being transparent.
Just posted in the chat, Matt, while you were sharing the good stuff. We shared instructors. We'd bring in somebody. It always cracked me up. Hey, we're bringing this expert in. They're an expert because they carried a briefcase and they're 50 miles away, and that's what made them an expert. But in reality, being able to share those resources, it's going to make you feel great that you're going into a neighbor agency and providing that insight over that topic, those types of things. It gives you that credibility, makes you feel good, it makes you feel validated in all of this, and you're enabling someone else to come in. But I think it also shows a little bit of your maturity as a fire service leader, that you are willing to allow someone from another agency come in and help out in those areas as well. If you don't mind, I'm going to run one more poll question for us right now, just to get us ready for the next section. So everybody get ready. This one here is: how are you currently tracking your training records and ISO requirements? Now, I recognize, Matt, some folks, they don't care about ISO. I get that. That was not me. I was, I needed something bigger and stronger, and those kind of things. And being able to pull that information in to whether if you're doing, the low SAP, length of service rewards or recognition. We didn't give them rewards. We just recognized people for the number of hours they did standby at the station and went on the number of calls and those types of things. But as we look at the poll here, I am absolutely loving the fact that nobody said we don't track consistently. That is absolutely amazing. I love seeing that.
It's amazing, amazing to see that, because the last thing I want any fire service brother or sister to go through is, if inevitably being in a high risk environment in any capacity, the last thing I want to see is somebody be put in a situation where if something bad does happen in your organization, you're not prepared, you don't have records. So I love seeing that 0 on there, Robbie, because that I would not want to see or wish ill upon anybody that they have to go through not only a bad situation, but a bad situation with no consistent records as well in there. It just expands on the bad things that could go wrong there.
I do want to make a note that I did not put using Target Solutions on there. But most people put a legacy software on there, 44%. We got 33% doing a spreadsheet, whether it was Excel or Google Sheet. Go Google. And then we saw some people, 22% still doing pen and paper. But I appreciate the folks who put that in there. I tell you, when we moved from pen and paper and even to an Excel spreadsheet and moved to Target Solutions, that part of all the work that we were doing really streamlined, and we were able to do a lot more, not only just to meet the standards, but making sure that we were meeting the OSHA and HR requirements for our city, but also, people were like, "Oh, you just did 2 hours last month. What are you doing?" It put a little preface on there on, who was really an active member in the department and not. So I thought we could talk about evaluating the training effectiveness, tracking how we show the training that works best for your department with insight into progress and performance. And before I turn it over there to you on that one, the one thing I want to share about that is I was able to use target solutions specifically to be able to identify the different types of training we were doing. And that really, it brought insight into all of this. I'm sorry, I was showing, I didn't turn that poll off. I got sidetracked. I apologize, everybody. But to me, being able to identify and look at the different teams and what they were doing versus taking a course, recording that in-person training. That was really insightful to see where people were at and being able to recognize those same folks for whether it was good or bad. You know, they were training glad, but to me, that really is part of this, giving you the insights to be able to identify how the department wants to do things as well. What's your take on this one here?
You know, to me, this is the most important piece of all of this. You have to be able to measure the effectiveness of the material you're putting out, your program as a whole, and ultimately the performance that people are doing when you're doing this education. It's great to check a box, but if we're not evaluating its effectiveness, we are going to fail one another. Now, there's a multitude of technology out there. A little plug for Robbie and I. Coming up in April this year at FDIC, if any of our friends that are joining us today are going to be there on Thursday afternoon, we're going to have a whole entire session on this topic, on evaluating your effectiveness and measuring your readiness. We could talk for hours all day. And the sad part is we wouldn't get you back to your days and get other important things done. But when you look at the amount of technology and resources, especially free resources that are out there now today at our disposal, it is really important to be able to not just deliver the training, but look at the metrics. What areas are we training the most in? And then also tie that insight to what type of calls are we going on? If we're training a lot on, let's say company training, you know, throwing ground ladders, stretching lines, tagging hydrants, but we have a bunch of new drivers and we're not focusing and spending time putting them on the panel, or we're not spending time talking and having conversations and training our senior firefighters to be company officers in some point in their future, then our effectiveness isn't there. If we're having a training on forcible entry, but then we look at the amount of time that it actually took a firefighter to force entry into there, and it's not within the benchmark and the expectations of you as an organization, we're struggling. And that's not good effectiveness of our time, resources, and energy. And so when we look at our training programs as a whole, we have to be able to evaluate not only what we're doing, but how well we are doing it as well. And when you do that, it's easy to run reports. Where are we at as an organization? What training hours, what metrics do we put out? But then also tying that in the second breath to being able to put it into a visual perspective. So on that poll, a lot of people put that they're using some systems out there, but they also put in there that what about a combination of both, and using things like Google Sheets. Give some love to Robbie. We call him Captain Google. And he didn't let me put my nice AI image of him as the Google superhero in our slide deck to give you all a chuckle today. But when we tie that, being able to use spreadsheets and those resources that are right at our disposal to be able to say, hey, here's the information out of my training platform. We want to evaluate the last 6 months of the information that was put into Target Solutions. Well, great. Now I want some visualizations and some information with that. How can I get that information out? In some cases, depending, I oftentimes say it's agency specific, and, we all learn and operate and function a little bit different. Maybe the information you're going to get out of those reports is what you're looking for. Maybe to others, hey, I need some, I want to, be able to put the data in this specific format, but how do I do it? Well, you know what? I'm going to open Excel or Google Sheets and be able to put a pivot table in there and a graph or a chart of some sort because I want to see it just a little bit different. Or maybe I want to pull this data, but I want to extract certain information out of that for other purposes. So the resources and the tools and the technology are there, but also using things like AI to your benefit. How are you preparing your effectiveness of your training program? One of the things we spent a lot of time talking about earlier is inclusiveness. You get those new instructors or firefighters that you're going to empower to come in and teach and get their engagement and involvement. Are you still providing them the resources to be successful rather than, hey, Robbie, I want you to go teach that ground ladder drill tonight, and I'm not going to give you any direction on what I want you to cover. But we all live in busy lifestyles. And when you tie all of those points we talked about in the very beginning together, AI is a powerful tool. It's not there to replace us. We're still the SMEs. But can you use tools and technology to be there to support us moving forward into the future to give a lesson plan in a matter of seconds? To say, hey, Robbie, Firefighter King, I want this is the lesson plan, but I want you to teach this tonight. We're still including our people. We're still empowering them to be outside of that box, but I'm also giving them enough direction to say these are the standards, these are the curriculum objectives, whatever you're operating on. This is the information that I'm giving you in there.
Very much, very much. So I was reading what Paul wrote, and it got me sidetracked. And Paul's spot on there, talking about the member has to want to move up to the next level to get them to train to that level. And that sure is true for sure on that one there. We worked with an agency together, but separately as well. And we were able to put some items together where we took the data and just shared it with people. It was a visualization coming out of the system, but people were able to see who was doing well and who weren't doing well. And we see once you have to inspect what you expect and those types of things. When we look at different ways to be able to show that train that is working, in the different ways in your department, it allows you to see those things. If you just do, your 4 weekly trainings a month, and most of us are spending 3-4 hours, so you're going to make those ISO points in those areas and do those things. So to me, that really is impactful as we look at those things. But being able to show all of it to give you the insights on the progress and those performances, and you're right, Paul, also with the people just don't know sometimes, and making it available to see those things is really important. We're getting close on time, Matt, and I see a couple other questions that came in I want to get to, but when we start talking about having what Vector Solutions is offering in this volunteer edition of Target Solutions, we want to make sure that we are providing access to the essential training that almost everybody needs. Sometimes when we talk to people, we show them a presentation like, I can't do all that. I just need this. And this is that piece of things. So not only does it make it easier to consume, but also makes it affordable in here as well. To me, that's really important. And so I'm going to launch our last poll question for the day, because I want to hear what everybody else is doing here. But if you could give your volunteers one thing to improve their experience, what would it be? We got less classroom time, more hands-on drill time, better visibility, knowing what they owe, or mobile access. Seeing what I'm seeing on the poll question right now, I probably would lead into the hands-on time as well. But better visibility is really spot on as well. What would you have picked there, Matt?
I have a heart for hands-on drills, so I'm going to be with
Yeah.
the majority of our folks there. And I say that coming from a technology perspective, I think you know, there's a use of technology in training in the right perspective. And oftentimes when you and I get to go around the country and work with departments and train departments on how to use technology, I oftentimes refer to it that this is not a crutch for you to make your job easier. Or we still have a hard job. One of the most important pieces in the fire service is training. It's not there to make that crutch on there. It's there to guide you and make things easier so we can spend more time on the drill ground. We can test people's abilities and skills, and provide them the training and ease of use methodologies so that when we get together, the time is more impactful together and we can make more out of that.
Definitely. So here, I mean, it's pretty clear. Everybody wants more hands-on time. When I moved all of our knowledge-based training to online, doing it during the week when it was convenient for you, I found that I was able I was not able, I was able to document more hours of training. But we covered Thursday night. We talked about, hey, appreciate all your help when we did this last week. Great job on these calls. And next week, I need your help in these areas. We were out the door doing hands-on training, and it really saved me in recruitment because they kept on telling their friends and family how great of a time they were having with us. And I was able to work on retention side of those things as well. But better visibility, knowing what they owe, and less classroom time. That nobody wants to be doing death by PowerPoint. I see I'm doing PowerPoint right now, but I get that part. But anything else you want to talk about here before we get into the last question I got for us?
Nope, I'm good.
Awesome. So great. Our premise is we didn't have enough time to show you what the new Vector edition looks like, and I apologize for that. Just ran out of time. But the best way to see it is come to vectorsolutions.com. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a request a demo. You can give us a call, 1-800-840-8048. Matt, before I got a question I was going to ask you to take care of for us. I wanted to get your take on something. And one of the questions came up was working with, we have an older group, and the older group in our department don't have the time or the ability to look at this modern day stuff. What's your response to some of that kind of stuff?
I think as you approach that, and you are, spending a lot of time in the physical perspective with those skills, you have to have that balance. I'll always be a firm believer that, technology doesn't put fires out, but it guides us to the right direction. It talks about some of the back to the basics. One of the comments that got left in there was the best electronic training in the world. But if the firefighter can't translate it, it's spot on. I wholeheartedly agree with you. And that's where I went before and said, don't make this a crutch, but find a happy median. When you look at your folks in the fire service and what what their availability is, you know, empower one another to support one another. So if you have that older crowd that may not be the best computer literate people, great. Find people in your organization to help guide them through. And that might be that brand new person that just walks in the door. But sit them down and help work together as a crew. It's a brother and sisterhood. So bring them together and leverage one another. I think the most veteran fire service person can still learn something from the newest fire service person. It may not be how to put a fire out, but they can learn something. And I think every day we have so many coaching and learning opportunities around us, and sometimes we don't look at them in that perspective. So if you're doing really well at your skills and you're looking to how to bridge that gap and bring that together, is look in your organization at those folks that may be a little bit better than the others and empower them. It goes back to that inclusive topic. Empower those people to bring their insights and work together and share those opportunities for strong effectiveness in it.
Very much. The last question that came up is we're 100% volunteer. We buy gear with fundraiser money, and we can't afford, software like Vector has. I get that. That's really the reason why we came. We want to be helpful and take care of everyone. We understand that every dollar is scrutinized. That's exactly the reason why we made this volunteer edition. We stripped out the complexity that larger departments may need, but that you don't, to bring that cost down. And so for us, we price this to be specific for a volunteer department that runs on fundraisers, not a tax levy, but giving you that professional grade training at a volunteer friendly price in all of this. So in closing, the IFC's got a couple of big events coming in they want us to talk about. We will, of course, see everybody at FRI and the Technology Summit. I'm not looking forward to see how cold it's going to be in Denver, Matt, but we'll definitely be there as well. We really do appreciate Matt, you giving us time, you giving us all time, watching today, being interactive with us. This makes a quick hour for Matt and I, but we also want to thank the IFC for allowing us to partner with them, specifically with the Training and Education Development Committee. Vector Solutions is here for today's service. But we appreciate everything that you all do. And if you have anything for us, please reach out to us at vectorsolutions.com and you can grab a hold of us. But everybody have a great day and thank you.
Take care, everyone.